The rates of chronic diseases are up in our children. The suicide rate is up in our children, along with so many other issues. Today's interview, part two, we're going to get into what we can do to start seeing a curb in this. Really hope you enjoy part two of my interview with pediatric integrative medicine Dr. Joel Warsh.
Well,
Can you talk about,
yeah.
generically, what you think an infant diet?
Well, I would say, I mean, that's even the specific reason why I wanted to write this book for this age range, because I feel like we have to get to our kids early. We have to get ahead of the issues, and we need to start from day one, setting the foundations up for success when it comes to food or toxins or whatever it may be. And realistically, if you look at the parenting books out there, most of them are written now by therapists or moms or other practitioners. And there's a lot of great books out there, but most of them are not written by pediatricians. They used to be, but we're missing that health aspect to the parenting books. And I think that's a very vital, key, important aspect that does play into all the regular questions that parents ask for parenting. And it's also vital just for health in general based on where we are. And so, yeah, I think it is important to set them up for success from day one. And I'm not an all or none kind of person. I don't think that they
No,
could
you don't sound like it at all.
they can never have sugar or never have a piece of cake. I think that's fine if you do it every now and again, but your 2-year-old only knows what you feed them. So they don't need sugars, they don't need the sweets, they don't need the processed food. They shouldn't be exposed to that at all. And of course when they get older it's a little bit harder, but I think you explain it to them, you teach them, you make sure that the food that you're preparing at home is as healthy as possible, and then you're covering 99% of what they're eating. And then if they have a piece of cake at a party or a piece of pizza or whatever, it's not the end of the world for them, and their bodies can handle it. And that to me is the way that we move forward, where we're not all or none, but we're helping our kids to be mindful, to teach them to eat healthy. Because if they don't learn it, then they're not going to do it. And I don't think our generation really learned it that
No.
much. I mean, our parents and grandparents, we were marketed to. We got the TV dinners. We got we got the fast food. I mean, that was just a part of the way that
It all
things
started in
were.
the 50s. If you look at,
Right.
post World War II. But yeah, it was fast food. It was, and by the way, again, in moderation, some of my best
Right.
memories were going, by the way, we were not a family of means. So McDonald's was a big
Hmm.
night out for us.
Me too. I mean, and that's where I don't try to demonize anything, because it's not that it's bad, all bad. It's just that if you're eating that all the time, then there's no way that your body's going to be able to process all those food and all those chemicals and all those preservatives. It adds up over time, and you have to give your body the nutrients that it needs to be successful. And if we aren't doing that, and we have all these other things that are already difficult for our health, like the air that we breathe has chemicals, the water that we drink has chemicals, there's things sprayed on our food, we're stressed out, like these things are going to be there to some degree. So
Right.
we have to control what we can control. And that is why I start the book talking about the foundations, and I start with the Dr. Gator smoothie, because it's kind of a play, on all the gurus that, air quotes gurus out there, that they say there's a magical smoothie for health, right? And let's throw in some carrots, and let's throw
Yeah,
in some
right,
celery,
right.
and this is going to
Yeah.
cure everything. And there's no
I mean, there's,
such
there's,
thing.
there's smoothies for pregnancy, right? There's
Right.
smoothies to get pregnant.
Right.
There's, right.
And I like smoothies. They're good, but
Smoothies are amazing.
but I start with the scoop of the seeds, being stress, environment and toxins, exercise, diet and sleep. Throw in some getting out in sunlight, getting out into nature, spending time with your family,
All right, so let's slow down a
cooking.
little bit. So the smoothie is a symbolic smoothie
Right.
in life. Okay. And so let's go over this recipe for this symbolic smoothie.
Yeah.
So for example, let's take it from there. What am I putting into the symbolic Dr. Gator smoothie
So I start with a
of life?
big scoop of the seeds. So stress, environment and toxins, exercise, diet, and sleep. And then throwing in, some getting out into nature, sunlight, time with your family, love, support a family home. The things that are the basics of our foundation, nothing that's rocket science, but just the simple foundations that are so important. That to me is the smoothie for health. You can have a smoothie if you like. I love smoothies, but that's not going to cure everything. What is going to help your family be healthy is spending some time focusing on some or all of these aspects, whatever you can do.
I couldn't agree more. I will say to my wife, and it's good to have a real doctor here, because I joke. I'm like, well, Maria, I'm just a simple country doctor. I'll tell her, I'm like, you can go to the real doctors. But, doing this show now for so many years, and having sick people come on, sick people who've healed themselves, healers, practitioners, et cetera, come on. To me, it seems like You know, you can, if you don't do that recipe, the Dr. Gator smoothie recipe, and you are so extreme with your diet and so extreme with red light and all these other modalities, I'm like, you're only going to get a couple more. You'll get 3 to 5 more years.
Mhm.
But to really have that long life, it is all of those things you mentioned. It's a happy home. It's feeling fulfilled, love. Yes, fresh air, get out to nature. It's all of those things, I think, because that's why, you hear these people like, wait, he was he wasn't some fitness guy, and he's in
Mhm.
his 90s or hundreds, and but then you kind of peel the layers away, and what, he was fulfilled. He didn't have a lot of stress. He didn't have
Mhm.
judgment on others. He wasn't toxic. He was, he moved a lot. He was out walking, getting fresh air all the time, and you kind of go, okay. So then I think, if you can't get my thing is, if you can't get to that Whole Foods, and let's say you have to just buy at a generic supermarket. Well, I think even like that's still better than a bowl of like sugared cereal,
Mhm.
right? Like if you were gonna
Yeah.
chop up some vegetables and fruits and maybe some protein, and you got it at a supermarket, and maybe it does have more preservatives in it than other things. Don't you think that's better than the TV dinner?
Right, and that's exactly my point when I talk about this, because I don't want it to overwhelm people to say, "Oh, but I can't get to a farmer's market, so therefore my kid's gonna have X, Y, and Z." No, that's not the case. Our bodies are resilient and we have great detoxification systems, so we can handle a lot, but we're clearly getting to a point where it's too much. And so what we can do as parents is to be mindful and make the best choices that we possibly can for our kids within whatever that means. And just like you said, if that means going to your local grocery store, well, maybe you can buy a little bit more fresh and cook one more meal, and that's going to be more than good enough for you. But there are so many research studies out there that show us that these little changes matter. One great study out of Harvard was the can of soup study. I don't know if you're familiar with this study. It
No,
was a
tell me.
great study. So they took a bunch of patients, and they for 5 days they gave them cans of soup, and then for the next 5 days they gave them homemade soup, and they were looking at the BPA levels in their urine. And with the cans of soup, there's a BPA lining.
What is BPA?
BPA, so like a plastic, it's a neuroendocrine hormone disruptor, like bisphenol A. So it's one of the chemicals that's very common, and that's why we often say, like, try not to cook in plastics and other cook plastic and heat it up and things like that, because it can leach out. So they were looking at the BPA levels in the urine, and the difference of 5 days between doing the canned soup and doing the homemade soup was 1,000% difference in the urine. And that, to me, was such a great simple study, because it shows, look what a difference on one chemical in just a few days between making the soup and buying it in a can. So you add up all of those life decisions that we're making on all of the things with whatever chemicals out there, and these things add up. So yes, it does matter. 1,000% difference makes a difference. It might not be the difference between a problem today, but if you use that can of soup for the next 10 years, is that going to build up in your body? Is it going to cause a problem? Maybe, right? Maybe. But if you're not doing that, then is that not better? Right. So let's just be mindful of those things.
You touch on something. I think this is the key, because you keep going back to being mindful and time and family and cooking together. And I feel like our pursuits of more have pushed us um, to the point we're not we don't think we have the time to prepare a meal. And like, I love the idea of prepare it as a family. It's a great activity, and it's teaching that habit. But I'm glad I'm an older dad, because if I were younger, I would not be aware of this. And I need to check myself, because we're all thinking, well, if I work more, my my son or daughter will have more, and that's more. I see today their schedules are so overloaded. I
Mhm.
have friends, Doc, who are driving all over
Oh, yeah.
the state all week long for sports, and I'm not talking these kids are little Serena Williams. It's literally every kid.
Hmm.
I was a kid, little league, and you had a couple of practices a week, and you had your game, and it was amazing. And I see parents, so it's more and more and more activities, the more money, work harder, make more money, and we're just it's getting more and more into a toxic lifestyle in so many levels. And when we do the Dr. Gator smoothie, uh, it's getting away from that and say, okay, let's slow down and maybe we're going to have a little less.
Right. I
You
mean,
know, I had a family that moved. We grew up in a working class, tough, tough neighborhood of good people, but tough neighborhood. And I think my dad and my parents had that, you know, the American dream: work harder. We're going to get you to a better house, a better town, better school system, and they did. But it ended up costing him his life. And when I think of the kids that stayed in the neighborhood, their fathers are all still alive. You know, they had them, and to me, that would have. I'm grateful I got what I got, but at the same time, I feel bad for my dad. Like I would have rather have had my father
hmm
if so. But I just think we're just pushing for so much more, and I like your back to parenting at your child's pace. Name of the book. Um, what I just love, it's like all of our paces need to, right? A child's not going at that pace. A child's
right.
not thinking I need piano and Mandarin lessons, and you know, they're at their pace.
Right. And I mean, the key thing that I heard from you is balance, right? And that's
Yeah,
my, I would say, overarching philosophy on almost everything is the extremes are almost never good, right? They're never the best thing. You usually want
you
to be
pay a
somewhere in
price.
the middle,
You're always
right?
going to pay a price.
Right.
I'll take you over to Hollywood. I know how many Hollywood stars, like
hmm
massive success, but there's a price,
Trust me, I see it. I see it
right?
in the office. I
That's
mean,
right. Oh my God, you're
there's
an
a
LA
price.
doctor. Hello,
Yeah.
right?
No, there is a price to it for some people. Some people can balance it, and some people it totally works for them. But I think, just like you said, that there is a too much, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't put your kid in piano, or it doesn't mean you shouldn't put them into activities, and but at some point it becomes too much, and we push kids over the edge, and very clearly that is happening because we can just look at the statistics for mental health for our teenagers, and it's abysmal. So we're obviously doing some things wrong, and certainly that's one
Yeah.
part of it. I mean,
And
we
we're not building up any of their resilience
right,
because it's
exactly.
just push, push, push.
Yeah.
It's not time of, okay, you fell, you skinned your knee. Okay. Like, okay, let's brush ourselves off. But um, I think, the parent pays the price too, because at the end you're like, oh my God, like what I see is a lot of parents who are freaked out because the kids don't have resilience or they're such on high anxiety.
hmm
Um,
I don't think we're teaching them a lot about resilience, and we also have to focus on our own mental health too. We need to get ourselves as parents to as
right.
good a place as we can so that we can help them. The most important relationship is the one that we have with them, and so if we have anxiety and we have mental health concerns and we don't address those to the best of our ability, then that bleeds into our kids, and we're seeing increasing rates of everything. So I just think that it's important that we acknowledge this and talk about it and move forward. There definitely is more discussion on mental health, so I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But we're still a very far off from moving in a positive direction. Most things are moving in the wrong direction right now, but I
Yeah.
I do hope that we could continue to talk about this and move in a different way.
I mean, listen, I hope that we at some point look at phones like we look at smoking now.
hmm
We look at people in the 1950s and 60s and 70s smoking, 80s smoking, and now we look back and we cringe. And I feel like 30 years from now, that generation will look and say the same thing.
I think so. I feel exactly the same way. I think that it's not the phone so much that's the issue as it is the way that we're using it, the
Yes,
apps,
that's
and
right.
the amount of time that it's sucking out of our lives, and the way that the apps are sucking out our our energy and our stress and the division and the anger that it's bringing out in people. And I
Yeah.
really hope that with everything that's going on, if anything this year, I mean, I think social media and that with Jonathan Haidt's book and just the discussion and the Surgeon General just talked about it, and even LAUSD just talked about
They're finally having a
banning
discussion.
schools, or banning phones in schools. So there is a movement back in the other direction, which I think is good. You do not need to be checking your phone all day at school. I understand.
Yeah, what is so back then I remember our high school had one payphone.
hmm
That was it. And if you had a problem, you had to get to your parent, you'd go to the principal or you'd use that phone whenever you could. Um, are they're looking into legislation to
They are. I think it just passed for LAUSD that they're going to be banning phones in
That
school.
school.
Yeah, in all of LAUSD.
You know, I mean, as much as I'm about freedom and freedom and freedom, you know, I think freedom from 0 to 18 is a little different,
And
right?
it's not that and I'm assuming, I don't know how it's going to play out, but it doesn't mean you can't have a phone. It just means you can't have it out when you're in the middle of learning, which is totally reasonable. You should be paying attention
Right.
in class and in school, and it's such a distraction and such a stress. And we know this because, again, you look at the statistics. 1/3 of teen girls have thought about suicide. Like, that is an insane number. 1/4 has a plan. 1 out of 10 has tried. Like, that, there's something wrong, and we need to start making some changes for our mental health. And absolutely, screens and social media are one huge factor. And so let's start to tinker with it and see if we can move things in a more positive direction so our kids can be happier at school.
Summer is here, Heal Squad. And to make sure we're all set for our upcoming summer travels, we will be heading over to Macy's to make sure we have everything we need. If you're ready to start planning for that upcoming summer vacation and you need some inspiration on where to start, make sure you head over to Maria's Macy's wish list using the link in this episode description. Let us know what you end up with. Wonderful pistachios. If you're a fan of the show, you know that for Maria and I, this is literally our go-to snack and the go-to snack of our loved ones, whether you like the salt and vinegar like I do, or the chili like Maria does, or the plain like my father-in-law likes, with wonderful pistachios. It's a great snack. It's something great and easy to eat on the go. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. So if you've been looking for the perfect snack, you can thank us later. Head over to www.wonderfulpistachios.com. Even Bobo wants some pistachios to snag a bag or a bunch of bags as we do. And by the way, may I recommend the little snack pack? Buying that in bulk. Now you get something you could just throw in your backpack, put in your pocket, or just do the Munch and Go program. Okay, Bobo, let's go get some pistachios. And processed foods and sugars and things like that are not helping.
That is not helping. No
Right?
way. That's the other big aspect of things. I think that gives you the brain fog and the brain inflammation, which of course does not help either. So yes, there are many aspects and many things that we need to do to move into a positive direction, but we have to acknowledge that we're doing this first before we can make a change. We have to say our food is affecting our brain. Our screens are affecting our brain. They are affecting our mental health. So therefore, let's make some changes and
And
see
especially for
what we can
children
do.
because their brain, everything's forming.
Right, everything's forming, and it's so complicated for an adult. It's so difficult for adults to navigate social media. So for a teenager or a child who hasn't been through the same life experience, there's no chance. I mean, we know that it's making people frustrated and upset. We know that it's making everybody stressed out. We know that it's causing us serious issues, and yet we're throwing kids into it and saying, "Hey, good luck. You know, here's your social media at 12. You know, try to focus at school." It's not going to happen, and it's not to stop them from ever having social media or stop technology. That's not what we're saying. It's we need to put some guardrails up, just like we do
Yeah,
with
padded walls.
smoking
Right.
or drinking or just about anything where people can harm themselves. Then we have some guardrails up there that, okay, before 18 you can't do this, before 21 you can't do this, at this age we need to have some discussions, we need to have some warnings. Like, we've done that with almost everything else, not with social media. And so I think it's time that we do that, because we are pretty sure at this point that it's causing or contributing at least to a huge portion of that crisis.
For all the patients, the parents, and the children who come to you, what would you say would be the number one greatest mistake you think they're making?
I think the number one mistake is not trusting in your inner abilities and your innate knowledge of what's best for your own child. I think that nobody knows your kids better than you do. We figure it out as we go, and we all feel like we're doing something wrong. We feel like we're not doing good enough. We feel like we don't know what's best when 99.9% of the time parents do. I mean, most of the time when they message me, it's normal, and I could just stand outside with a sign that it's normal and save everybody the copay, and they could turn around, because most people know what to do, and it just takes the confidence and the trust in yourself. And you do see that as parents are having their second kid and their third kid and their fourth kid. Most parents start to realize, oh, okay, I can do this. I can compare to what was before. But especially with a new parent, they're often so concerned that they are doing it wrong or screwing up their child or going to make the wrong decision, when the reality is that it's in you. It's always been in you, and we're built to be able to do this, and we figure it out as we go. Nobody's truly prepared to be a parent. Nobody's truly ready to be a parent before you become a parent. You figure it out as you go. That's what parenting is. And we all do. It's a circle. It's something happens, you figure out what to do. Something happens, you figure out what to do. You're never going to know exactly what to do, and that's why no book is going to give you all the answers, because you can only prepare people to how to think about things and the big situations that are going to come up, but then you have to take in all that information, synthesize it, and figure out what's going to be best for your family or your child on that day. And that is one of the big things that I want to do with the book, is not to tell people what to do, but to help people think through the issues that are going to come up, so that way you can figure out what's best for you.
If I guess that ties into my next question, is like, what would be, you know, the best advice if you're pregnant right now, or you have someone, you know, maybe as a grandparent who's you're about to be a grandparent. What are the things they can do to prepare for this first 0 to 3 years?
Well, I think the main thing to prepare, if you are thinking about getting pregnant or you are pregnant, is just to start thinking about your own health, because every single thing that you do matters. Everything that you eat matters. Everywhere that you go matters. The exercise matters. The toxins that you're exposed to matter. So, besides the stuff we just talked about, if we're gonna talk about that, you can do it. I think the other part of it is focusing on our health, focusing on ourselves, and preparing our body and our life to be the healthiest possible, so that we create the most resilient, nurturing environment for our kids that we possibly can.
Do you, and I know this is a real tough question.
Throw it at me.
I go back and forth on it myself as a parent. And I think the solution for me is now comes from what you just said. I have to just continue to trust my instincts. And my wife, the mom, has greater, at least our family, greater instincts.
Mine too.
But right.
Don't tell anyone.
Yeah. but with the whole vaccines, what's your opinion on that? Because we've really, it seems like we've inflated the number of vaccines since I was a kid.
Yeah, so you went for the big one, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's the one that's most heavily on my mind, because at the same time, I want to make sure she's protected, but then also I want to make sure she's not poisoned either.
To me, when we talk about vaccines, the frustration for me is that as soon as the conversation comes up, it's so divisive.
Polarizing, yes.
So polarizing. You can't talk about it. Everything kind of devolves into an argument and a fight, and that is not the correct way to move forward. I think that we have to be open and mindful and have discussions about everything when it comes to medicine, whether it's medications, vaccines, and be open to having or setting up a scenario that is going to be the best and healthiest for our kids. We all have the same goal, right? Which is for our kids to be healthy. And maybe some people differ on what their beliefs on how to get there is. And the evidence that we have on vaccines comes from CDC, American Academy of Pediatrics. That's what we have, and that's the best that we have at this time. But a lot of that information comes from companies, and I think we need to step back, and we need to have more open and honest discussions between people that disagree, especially on this topic, and continue to do research on them, continue to discuss them, continue to make sure that we're doing things in the best, most optimal way for our kids. And we have to be humble that there might be some changes that are needed over the long run, because things change and diseases change and the world changes. And so I think that we're in a place now where we can't have open discussions about it, and we should, and we need to. And we need to talk about what is the best for our kids moving forward, and how we can get there. And even if that is the CDC schedule it is today, well, more people in the medical world need to get out there and talk about it, and talk about the pros and the cons, kind of debate the issues that are coming out, and have discussions, because maybe there are some things that could be different. Maybe there are some things that we could do in a different way. I don't know. We don't have the research on a lot of this stuff. I think we have the stuff that we have from the companies from when they're first put out, but I think we need more. We always need to be doing more, because at the end of the day, it's what is the best for our kids, right? What is the best for our kids? We want to protect them from diseases, and we want to minimize the risks from doing any sort of medical procedure or medication. And so I don't know. It's so controversial,
Mm-hmm.
but I just don't know why it has to be like why we can't discuss the ingredients, why we can't discuss how we could, potentially make anything better, or is there something that we could do to make it
Just
better,
like you
or
said, marketing, social media, all of it. It's
right, all
just
of
made
it.
us all crazy.
Right, it has, and it makes this. As soon as you say the word, everybody goes nuts, and
Yeah,
so it's
everybody goes, and I got. And by the way, like I've gotten vaccinations, and
hmm
then I haven't.
Yeah, I'm
So
not.
it's
I'm,
like
I'm not anti anything, right? I'm pro health. I'm pro people making decisions that they feel are best for their family. I'm pro information,
yeah.
and I feel like as soon as you have a discussion on the topic,
Well, today, yeah,
automatically it's like, oh, well, you're talking about this. Well, that's all bad. No, we want to have healthy kids, or we want to have healthy kids, and
yeah.
we should not assume anything. We should continue to study, continue to research. We have a lot of smart people in this world that can get outside of the companies and look at things and see if we can optimize it, make it better, see what's contributing to what, and then, maybe we make changes, maybe we don't. But the more that we talk about it, the more that we're going to give people confidence that they're doing the right thing for their kids, as opposed to fighting
Just
and arguing. It doesn't
right.
help anybody.
Just politicizing it too.
Right.
That's crazy. We're talking just about health. What's that have to do with red or blue?
Uh, well, yeah, and I said, like, sometimes it's red or blue, even when I'm talking about things, and people, label me things sometimes, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what does it matter? First of all, I'm Canadian, so I'm not in anything. But second of all, I don't care who I talk to. It's everybody's a parent. I don't care if you're red or blue or from this country or that country.
Yeah.
It
No.
doesn't
Right.
make any difference. We're
No.
talking about health. It goes between the boundaries, and until we get there, we're not going to be healthier.
I always wondered
Mhm.
how it works with new prescriptions, or new medications you learn about. Does a pharmaceutical rep come in and educate you on how does it work?
Sometimes. So it kind of depends on what the medication is, but certainly if there's something big in your industry, then sometimes they'll come. I mean, I think it's more they'll come into like the surgeon's office and those kind of things because those are bigger money in general, but they definitely will come. They'll present things in the office. They will go to hospitals and
Well,
get
how would you
presentations.
find out about a new if there's a new great medication that comes out,
Usually you'd hear about it on like nowadays I hear it online and hear it from colleagues
and then do you
on
do
the
your due
news.
diligence to look into it?
As much as I can. So I mean, you try to research things as best as you can, but whenever something's coming out that's new, it's so biased because you're getting the
Yeah.
information from the company, and so it's really sometimes very difficult to go through and to really know what to believe or not
I
to
never
believe.
thought of how the system would work. I mean, I get how a hospital could maybe mandate a certain
hmm
medication and say, guys, now for this ailment, we're going with this
hmm
medication. But for a private doctor's office or private practice, is our doctors is it they just find out online that something
Um,
there's a new kind of cool drug for a certain
yeah,
ailment?
it's a mixture, but you can definitely find it online. If it's big enough, then they will come, or they'll let you know, or you'll get emails. They'll send you the companies. Well, if you're using similar products, they know everything, so they'll find you if you could prescribe their product, I think. But when you are in private practice, you have a little bit more autonomy to do what you want, but you're still held to the standards of what is presumed to be the standard of care. And so if you don't do something, you have to be able to explain why. And so that's where, when these new products come in, if it becomes the new standard and you don't agree with that, then you're in, it's a tough place to be in medicine these days on some things, because there certainly are some newer things that come out and you don't always agree of whether you should be giving that product or whether that is the best product or whether that's the right thing for your patient. And so when you go and you read the study and the study comes from the company, then if you have an inquisitive mind, you might wonder whether the company might be biased to their own product that they're going to be making money on and maximize the benefits and minimize the risks. And especially when you're talking about things in the short term, then we're probably minimizing some of the risks in the long term that we just don't know about because they haven't been studied for 20 years. How do you know?
Yeah, you don't know.
So it doesn't mean there is a problem, but you can't say that there isn't unless it's been 20 years. So it's just that's the system as it is, and we have to deal with it. But it makes it a tough time to be in healthcare, I think, to some degree, because there's a lot of politics and money that goes into it. And if you speak against the grain, then you run into issues.
Yeah, right. Parenting at Your Child's Pace. Dr. Joel Warsh, Gator, his nickname is. This book is available for pre-order on Amazon, and I think this is the new way of parenting. I hope people take to the book and the message now rather than 20 or 30 years from now where they're going to have to. But I agree. I think it is at your child's pace, and I think it's us all slowing down and being mindful, like you said, being aware. And I feel like we can all apply that. But it's a really important message. And I know, Joe, your Instagram also has great information as well.
Thank you.
And is that at Dr.
Dr. Joel Gator. Yeah.
At Dr. Joel Gator.
Yeah. And I get the question a lot. So Gator's my wife's last name.
Yeah, no, I love this. Explain the nickname.
So everyone thinks it's a Florida thing. It's not a Florida thing. I grew up in Toronto, nothing against Florida, but her name is Intelligator. So people started calling me Dr. Gator, and it was cute, so I kept it.
By the way, and so was her name Intelligator?
That's her real name.
Because when I saw Holistic Divorce, she seems so unique that I said, well, an intelligent alligator, like she's right? But that's her real name.
She's a very intelligent alligator.
Yeah. So you have all the strength of a gator and the resilience of a gator, but you don't have that little pea lizard brain.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe I do, but I hope not. We'll see. She doesn't.
Take it from me. I do as well. Dr. Joel, thank you so much. This was a great conversation, and I agree with what you're saying, and this is certainly a good reminder, very helpful for me to slow it down a little bit, cook together as a family, be more mindful with our decisions, a little less pressure, let things happen, mindful with the TV, mindful with the social media, and it takes time. And that means we have to give up. And a lot of people, I understand it's hard because they do have to pay bills. It's not about getting extra or getting more. It's about meeting their needs. So anyway, parenting at your child's pace with Dr. Joel. And as we conclude this episode, we always say on Heal Squad to be nice people, make good choices, and stay present.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or mariamenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.